The wind howled through the narrow alleys of the village, carrying with it the icy sting of winter. It was New Year's Eve, and the streets were nearly empty, save for an occasional shadowy figure hurrying home. At the edge of the village, a boy named Elric trudged along, his thin cloak flapping helplessly against the cold. Elric was carrying a small lantern in his hand, its flickering light barely enough to illuminate the frost-covered path ahead. The lantern wasn't just any lantern, it had been his mother's, passed down through generations, said to guide lost souls home. He didn't entirely believe the stories, but tonight, with the bitter cold gnawing at his fingers and his stomach growling with hunger, he held onto the lantern as if it might somehow protect him. The villagers, warm in their homes, were feasting and celebrating the arrival of a new year. Their laughter spilled out faintly through cracks in the doors and windows, mingling with the scent of roasted meats and spiced drinks. Elric's heart ached for that warmth, but he couldn't stop. His father had sent him to fetch firewood, and the forest was still a good way off. As he walked, the cold grew more unbearable, and Elric began to wonder if he could make it back at all. His steps faltered, and his breath came out in short, frosty bursts. Suddenly, the lantern in his hand flickered brightly, its glow casting a strange golden hue on the snow ahead. "What?" he murmured, stopping in his tracks. The light from the lantern stretched forward, illuminating a figure standing under an ancient oak. It was a girl, her form barely visible through the swirling snow. She was dressed in tattered clothes, her hair wild and tangled, and she held a bundle of dried flowers in her arms. "Are you lost?" Elric called, his voice trembling as much from fear as from cold. The girl turned her face towards him, and for a moment he thought she might disappear like a wisp of smoke. Instead, she stepped closer, her feet leaving no imprint in the snow. "I am not lost," she said softly, her voice carrying an otherworldly calm. "But you are." Elric swallowed hard, gripping the lantern tighter. "I need to get to the forest. I have to bring firewood home." The girl tilted her head, her dark eyes seeming to pierce through him. "This path will not lead you to the forest, but if you follow me, I can show you another way." He hesitated. Something about her didn't feel entirely real, but the lantern in his hand glowed steadily now, as if urging him forward. Against his better judgment, he nodded. The girl led him down a path he had never seen before, where the snow seemed untouched and the trees loomed like towering shadows. The wind quieted as they walked, and the lantern's light grew warmer, brighter. Elric began to feel his fingers again, and the gnawing hunger in his stomach faded. Finally, they reached a clearing where a small fire crackled in the center, surrounded by neatly stacked firewood. Elric's heart leapt with relief. "Thank you," he said, turning to the girl. But she was gone. The lantern dimmed, its light no longer golden, but faint and ordinary. Confused, Elric gathered the firewood quickly and hurried back to the village. When he reached home, his father's stern face softened at the sight of the firewood. "You've done well," he said, patting Elric's shoulder. That night, as the fire roared in their small hearth, Elric glanced at the lantern resting beside him. Its glow seemed to flicker knowingly, as if guarding a secret. He never saw the strange girl again, but every New Year's Eve, Elric would light the lantern and place it in their window, a beacon for those wandering in the cold. He didn't know if the lantern truly guided lost souls, but he hoped that somewhere it might light the way for someone in need, just as it had for him.